to replace Phil Hartman because he was taken out. And he and I talked a lot when I got to know him. He invited me, he says, I hope you're going to move to California one of these days because there's so much going on for a guy like you. And he was so generous, you know. There's not a lot of people that will call you up and say, there's a lot more work for you out here, because I was living in New York. And sure enough, I wound up out there. We were doing a commercial together. I did an M&M's commercial where I played the red M&M, and he played this guy at the pool, like a lifeguard named Chucky Barr. You know, and he was like trying to pick up girls and everything, but he melted in the sun, and I did, and so he lost. And then Tia Carrera took a bite out of my head. Lucky me. That voice, you know, we talked about our love of big dumb announcers, because I was in radio for a long time. I got into radio in the early 80s, like 1981. And all the big dumb announcers were on their way out. You know, people that just talked at you, deliberately. Those pills, everybody, you know, buy them today. And it's like, this guy can't be real. He went to school so he could, like, talk at you instead of, like, with you or try to identify some common thread that you might have with your audience. And I said, these guys are a drag, but they're funny as hell. And I could do all the big dumb announcers, you know, it was like, well, this is Johnny Benton, the Human Cannon, saying what's in you is gonna come out, and that's what rock and roll is all about. And before eating this slop, Mr. Roy Orbison, 1959. Pretty woman. And those guys just were so ridiculous. They loved the sound of their own voice more than anything. That's what I discerned after all this. They liked carrying their balls in a wheelbarrow, listening to their own resonance, you know. They would deliberate on words because they loved the vibe, you know. The minute they spread their vibration out when they talk, they went, coming to the Worcester Centrum, man. You know, the hamburger helper of words. Just, yeah. And that's what I love about Zap Brannigan, you know, that I took that element and stuck it on him. And he'd be like, Kip, alert the men. I made it with a woman. She's a beautiful ship, all right. I'm gonna fly her brains out. And, you know, he's just such a great character. He's so stupid, which I love. I think he's stupider than Fry. But I don't think of Fry as stupid. I think he's pure of heart and Zap isn't. You know, Zap's got like a bar of salt for a heart or something. But he was kind of a sleazeball, but there he survived all the attacks on the Duke headquarters and all that. Mr. President, what the hell? Reporting for duty. Oh, and I did Nixon in these episodes, you know, where it was just like, got those suckers off my lawn. I have to tell you why I did that. They always say, you know, why did you make him like growl like a dog or something? And I said, because I watched the debates between Richard M. Nixon and John F. Kennedy. I saw it on TV in 1960. And the television was now going to decide who was going to be president, not radio. You saw who you were looking at. And Kennedy looked like, you know, a game show host. He had that buttered toast hair, and big smile, you know, ultra bright. And Nixon, on the other hand, was sweating. His hair was matted. He looked nervous, and his 5 o'clock shadow was coming in. Every time they cut back to him, I swear it got darker. He was like devolving, becoming you know, Cro-Mag or something. So when he talked, he was trying to be sincere, but it just didn't look that way because he was a mess. You know, he's like, well, I'm saying my fellow Americans, you know, and I said to my mom, I said, Mom, he's going to turn into a werewolf. He's going to turn into a werewolf, I swear. And so I thought of him in that moment, and I thought, what if he just went, and I hope you vote for me. That's why he has that, now you know. What is that all about? David Cohen loved that so much, and then all the writers loved it, and they kept writing more stuff, you know. And Joy of the great taste of Charleston Chew. That bastard, I got my revenge because he drafted me in 1970, that bastard. And I got the ultimate revenge because all my Nixon clips that I did for Futurama are playing in the Nixon library. He can't do that because he's a head in a jar, but I think they stuck the vice president to him one time. The vice president was walking around there. That's all Cheney ever said, Dick Cheney. Oh, boy. Vietnam, huh? I'll show you someday. I wonder, I guess they don't care. They just took all things Nixon. You know, from anywhere they had clips of all the impressionists back in the 60s, doing impressions of him. And it was just fun to do. They all made fun of him, but I thought, I gotta go another degree. I gotta take this to a higher level. So I dogged him out, wolfed him out. Let's see, there's other stuff that I've done along the way on Futurama, a lot of peripheral characters that would just kind of show up. And it's always fun to watch everybody else in that room because I swear it's like going to school some mornings. You know, some people will walk in the room and somebody's firing on 8 cylinders. And I go, man, I'm going to be on my toes today. I really do because I learn from other people and I watch other people and they're like, oh, get out. You know, and I said, no, I'm serious. You know, I don't have any sense of entitlement and I just love showing up for work. I'm glad they asked me and I'll keep coming in until they tell me don't come in anymore. More like, you know, the people that had immigrant mentality when they first built this country. 18 hours a day? No problem, I'll work. You know, I was really built for that, to just keep, you know, outputting and outputting. And, but before all this happened, I'm working backwards. When I was on the Howard Stern show, I got a call, not personally, but to agents from Nickelodeon, and they were going to have an animation block, which was kind of bold because Disney and CBS and a lot of these other stations had the Saturday morning thing locked up. So this woman at Nickelodeon, Jerry Laybourne, said, why don't we have ours on Sunday morning? And they were going, no, kids, they're not there Sunday morning. Well, they weren't there Saturday morning either until you put something on that they liked. So Nickelodeon was seeing voice people for 2 different cartoons. And one was Doug.
Yeah!
And I had no idea that Doug was so popular, and I said, they must be showing it again or something. Not the sucky Disney Doug. You know, they wanted too much. They wanted me to do like 12 voices and pay me like in French fries and, you know, croissants. And I said, no, I wish you nothing but the best that life has to offer. I've always been, like, really gracious, even though you want to punch him in the head. And when Doug was around, I met with the creators of the show, and they just said, what do you think? And I said, well, you could get a real kid to do it, but that kid's going to grow up. Within a year, his voice is going to change. So I wasn't really imitating a kid. I just tried to sound as innocent and pure of heart as you could be as an actor, you know. And the sincerity and everything about him, it was just so sweet. But I remember back to when I was 11, I did a lot of fantasizing. My head was never in the room I was in. It was always out, you know, somewhere in the universe and hobnobbing with the gods. You know, just imagination always going. I had no use for school. I hated it. I had no interest in scholastics or authority. So I just lived in my own little world, and let's see, I guess I was pretty sweet. I was raised to be a gentleman, you know, back in the old days they raised you, please, thank you, you know, the door for women or a girl, you know, just you're supposed to be chivalrous, and I don't know where all that went, but I'm still like that. I really am, and these girls that are married 4 times, they go, you're a real gentleman. They're like, why didn't I meet you 4 husbands ago? You know, no, because you're one of the big 8 that you have a project. You know? He has to be over 6 feet. You want to change him. Well, we were married for a month and a half. You're not going to change me. So Doug, I got the voice of Doug, which was...
Well, he was a painfully average 11-and-a-half-year-old, and this way the pork chop. Good boy, pork chop. And I had a crush on Patty Mayonnaise. She's wonderful. I like to go swinging with her, but not that kind of swinging. And you know, he was just great. He had diary entries, and you know. Today, they employed me to be the voice of Doug, and without me, Billy West would be driving a truck. Probably. So, and then there was this bad kid. And the way they drew him, I just looked at him and I said, God, he reminds me of this pain-in-the-ass guy, this kid that I knew. He was like always like digging into your shoulder, right there where it's vulnerable, with his finger. And they drew this character, and everything about him is freaking pointy. His hair was pointy, his nose was pointy, his fingers are all pointy, and his shoes are pointy. You know, and it's like I could hear the kid's voice in my head, except I ramped it up for cartoon use, but it was like, hey, funny, hey, loser. You know, you don't like it? Write your congressman. And vote for this. Yeah, he probably grew up to run for office and say, I want to get paid if I'm a cheating swindler. You know, they should have had an adult version of what happened to everybody when they grew up. Maybe they will, with the popularity of the old one, I guess, is coming back around again on Nicktoons. So, check your local listings. Maybe I'll be the grown-up Doug. I don't know what it would sound like. I never gave it one thought. Yikes. So, at the very same time, with Nickelodeon, they were auditioning for this crazy show, and I only heard little bits and pieces about it, that there's this mad genius that was doing a new show, who I had met. I worked with John Cristoforetti in 1988, and it was my first animated cartoon that I worked on. It was called Beanie and Cecil, and it was a redo of a 60s cartoon that was very popular, and we had nothing but trouble. I mean, they only could meet deadlines every now and then over at Spongebob. And it was making people crazy, and after 6 episodes, it just got, you know, murdered in the public square. But I did learn a lot of stuff when I was doing it, and I don't know if you remember Beanie and Cecil. On YouTube, you can see it. You can see the version that we did is still on there. And then the old one, you know, he was lovable, gullible, armless, harmless, 10 feet tall, and wet. That was the... I'm coming, Beanie Boy! He was like, help, Cecil, help! You know, it was like a little kid doing the voice. And, you know, that was that. When I went back to Boston, I hadn't moved out of there yet.
Toxic Pop has a new Facebook page. Like it to see pictures and keep informed about our upcoming events and videos. A link is in the description. Go to www.facebook.com/toxicpop1.